I am joined now at Netroots Nation by Army First Lieutenant Dan Choi, who is, of course, a civil rights hero who was seriously someone who, don't ask, don't tell, would not have been repealed if it wasn't for him. He is a true civil rights hero. You can find out, if you already know where he is, but it's ltdanchoi.com is where you can find out what Dan's doing now. Dan, thank you so much for joining me.
It's great to be here. I want to point out that we're sitting under a sign that says drinking liberally. I don't know much about it, so I'm going to go to www.drinkingliberally.org. It's wonderful, and it's such a patriotic beer bottle.
It is. Actually, drinking liberally. If you're ever just around, like traveling around, look for drinking liberals are all over the country, and it's just it's like liberals getting together and drinking.
I get it.
It's like social
I was
clubs.
in the Army. I don't get things that quick, but it's great to be here with you.
Oh, thanks for being here. So, I wanted to talk to you very quickly about. Was it earlier this summer when you were arrested, when you chained yourself to the fence of the White House?
Last year.
It was last year, okay. You chained yourself there, you were arrested, and right now, at the moment, you are going to trial for this.
Federal court.
Federal court. Explain the charges that they're leveling against you.
Apparently, the administration does not like people protesting in certain ways, or in certain places. It is a federal charge because the Attorney General, Eric Holder, which is political appointee by President Obama, supposedly didn't like the way that we were protesting, so we are getting charged federally. All 13 of us were charged federally. They coerced and I think intimidated the group other than me to take a plea bargain.
Yeah.
And my simple plea is not guilty. I face 6 months in jail and a $5,000 fine. The charge itself is failure to obey an officer, police officer, for purposes of safety and traffic.
Yeah.
So I'm very blessed to have 2 wonderful lawyers, 3 lawyers now. More lawyers are joining, and actually, if you know any, I would appreciate them offering their assistance. I know that when you get into this kind of activism and issues that perhaps the president would rather have maybe lower on the docket or delayed a bit.
Right.
It gets difficult because those who disagree with your style will treat you as if you're a traitor to your country.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting that I was earlier this summer in Moscow, in Russia, for their LGBT Pride March.
And you were assaulted and arrested there as well.
But not charged.
Not charged.
I came back to America. Certainly there were no neo-Nazis trying to beat me and flip me over and harangue me and insult me. But I wondered how free I was in America when certain people try to silence activists. And in my opinion, when the speech zones, free speech zones are created, and when the non-free speech zones are created, that is not only a diminishing action for free speech, but it is a diminishing action for America. And America diminishes whenever we diminish that very sacred construct of individual rights to protest, to ask the government, petition the government, to redress grievances. And I think that it's a travesty for all people, not just gay people.
Yeah.
I'm the first person to be charged federally since Alice Paul, the women's suffrage hero, in 1917 when she protested Woodrow Wilson.
That's unbelievable. That's something that, like, when I read it, I was like, again, it hasn't happened since 1917 that someone was federally charged. There is no way around this, that this is a political prosecution. There is no doubt. And a political prosecution from supposedly, a Democrat who is supposedly into, down with gay rights. It's sickening and disgusting. So
let me just say that my lawyers have advised me not to talk to the press, but I disobey them just like I disobey immoral laws. And not to compare my lawyers to immoral laws, but sometimes we are bound in many more ways than we should be.
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you that this is a great injustice, not just for me, but for anybody who wishes to protest. What they're doing is they're trying to intimidate anybody else who tries to make as big of a scene as we did.
Yeah.
Now, the day after that we were arraigned, on March 18th, there was a rally where 113 protesters against the Iraq War. That was, I believe, the 8th anniversary of the Iraq War this year. 113 were arrested for exactly the same reason. The charge was exactly different.
Yeah.
They got a municipal level charge, post and forfeit, no contest. It's a traffic violation. It's like getting a parking ticket. It disappears. Some people should be celebrated for doing this. But I think what the Obama administration had realized is that they weren't going to celebrate any protesting.
Yeah.
They were going to try and squash it, particularly the potential of future protests. And that's what I take greatest issue to here, is that this is an assault on the First Amendment. This is an assault on the citizens of America, whatever your political party. This is the assault of the Constitution. And I'm prepared to fight this tooth and nail, do a countersuit, and to fight for all of my rights, not only for me, but for everybody else, because the fight for justice is not the fight for just us.
That's amazing, and people, I'm sure they can donate. Do you have a legal fund yet? Do you have?
I actually don't, but if somebody would like to help me out here, it's interesting, my financial situation also, and even though I say all this, I don't say this to be a victim.
Yeah.
I know that if many people look at my story, they think that, oh, how sad, and I want to have sympathy for him. I have done all of this out of my own pocket. I have never asked a major donor to give me any money. And with the lawyer costs and with travel costs and lodging and even my character witnesses, I fly them out myself.
Yeah.
On August 28th and 29th. I realized that some of that takes money, and I have never really been good about money. I have never invested in the right places, and honestly, the reason is because I went to Iraq, and I didn't think that I would live to see past 30. I thought that if I had to give my life for my country, then I at least had to consider the potential that would happen.
Right.
And so to be alive now and to be able to fight this, I think is a great honor, and I think it's what I would love to spend my 30s, my 40s, my 80s, my 90s. It's my very last breath to fight for free speech, just simply by talking, by acting, and by sacrificing.
I have to say, again, when I say a true civil rights show, because you are, but it's also, honestly, it really should be the way your actions should be a model of how liberals and progressives deal with liberal and progressive politicians when they ignore them. Obviously, the first couple of years of the Obama administration, there have been disappointment after disappointment where Obama's broken his word on several issues, and far too often, liberals will just cede because they're afraid of the Republican. And I know you don't consider yourself a Democrat or a Republican. I don't either. But it's like this is the only way to actually get change is to force them to do it and to be confrontational. These politicians are not our friends, and even if they do want to do the right thing, if you doing these actions gives them political cover too. So it's every single possible way. It is the right thing to do to make them do it.
Power is never conceded voluntarily. It is always at every moment in history, a demand that gets equality, a demand that gets full citizenship. It's a demand that gets the full measure of human dignity for every citizen that should be born with it. It's amazing and incredulous that we have to actually fight for what is endowed at birth. I think when we recognize that there are inalienable rights, that power really does belong to the people, and when we act on it, then our democracy will function like it was meant to.
Yeah.
At this point, our democracy is being run by about 3% of the population, who have about 50% of the nation's wealth, and maybe even more than that.
Right.
And I think that there's that in itself is an insult to the purpose of our country and the mandate of America. I think America is suffering right now in its soul because we have allowed certain people to hijack this country and turn it into an oligarchy. It is supposed to be a democracy. It is supposed to be a representative democracy. And the people who are entrusted with political positions are supposed to represent us. And nowadays it's very difficult to find anybody that there are some heroes in Congress and in the courts and in politics, but I right now don't think that my job is to be balanced, to say in my demand for power or equality.
Yeah.
In my demand, I would like to note that people have done good things. Because when I look at the Declaration of Independence, I don't think that many of our founding fathers and those signers of the Declaration said, well, the British were good with trade relations and their currency was strong, and those redcoats, they just looked so dapper when they just quarter themselves in their house. No, they didn't. They said, if a long train of usurpations is riddling the people in such a way that castigates them to a lower class and unfairly subjugates them to this kind of empire, to this kind of oppression, then it is right for the people to throw off those chains of oppression and indignity. And I think what we need to do is realize where in our situation that makes sense and where in our situation that does not make sense. I don't think that we need to destroy our entire government. I think that this democracy that we enjoy here in America is one of the best, the strongest, the most diverse, the most, I wouldn't say the most progressive, but I would say the most, it's definitely one of the largest functioning democracies in the world and in the history of the world. So I think that it's not time to shuffle off the entire coil.
Right.
But we as citizens must recognize that if we want to be included fully into this system, that we do have to stand up for ourselves in whatever way we can.
Army First Lieutenant Dan Choi, you really are seriously a hero. Thank you for all the work that you did and all the work that you continue to do. It's truly an honor talking to you, and thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you. We are just getting warmed up. Thanks, Matthew.